there are a few new students also. I think they are joining. So what I want to say here is that from today we are going to start this segment, modern Indian history. Okay, and there are few students in which there are 4 or 5 classes left, that is of post independence and all this. So I will cover this also here. Okay, so uh, first we will discuss syllabus today, right? We will also discuss the strategy because that is the most important part. Okay, for our preparation. So that is the most important thing. Okay, first to make a strategy is one of the most important thing. So this segment is modern Indian history. Okay, modern Indian history, and in this modern Indian history, national movement, okay, that is Indian independence movement, that is one of the most important part of our modern Indian history. Okay, now for our exam, what is important? For example, if you look at the syllabus of preliminary examination, the syllabus which have been given by UPSC, it only writes that we have to read about history of India, right, and Indian national movement. Now this is very comprehensive. It will include everything: history of India and Indian national movement. Okay, so it will also include the cultural developments of this particular period, and there are a lot of things that will be a part of it. Okay, so that is very comprehensive syllabus. So basically here we need to have discuss in detail that what we need to study here in modern Indian history. So first, you all are familiar with the previous developments, that is ancient Indian history, political developments basically, medieval Indian history, and this is modern Indian history. So basically, which time frame should be used here to discuss modern Indian history? So this time period, ancient Indian history, starting from the Stone Ages, okay, and covering the Gupta period and post Gupta era developments. Clear? This medieval India covers early medieval phase, as well as medieval phase. Clear? As well as medieval phase. These parts today we will not discuss in detail. We will focus mainly on modern Indian history. And in medieval India, basically, you read about the Sultanate period, okay, and you also read about the foundation of the Mughal Empire in 1526, and you also read about the decline of Mughal power after 1707 AD. So this 1707 AD is the year of the death of powerful Mughal ruler Aurangzeb. Okay, and this is from here we see the most important developments will start, right? But before this also, when we see that when Mughals were ruling, Babur was the first ruler, Mughal ruler, okay, who became ruler in 1526. Clear? This is the time period of Babur, 1526 to 1530. But we must know that before the foundation of Mughal Empire in India, what happened? Portuguese came to India. Portuguese came to India. The first Portuguese traveler in India was Vasco da Gama, right? And Vasco da Gama came to India in which year? 1498. It means that the advent of Europeans in India had already started. So now we have to connect two things here. That there are two most important events. I will also discuss the syllabus that has been given by UPSC, but let's first discuss a basic idea. The first important thing is that advent of different European groups in India. This is the first important point here. Advent of different European groups in India. I am writing here different European groups. It means that there were Portuguese also, there were Dutch also, right? There were English also, there were Danes also, and there were French also, right? So these are the different European groups. And the chronology which will be followed here is what? PDEF. This is the chronology in which these different European groups came to India. So you can simply remember it like PDF file. So this is PDEF. Portuguese, Dutch, English, and French. I will also discuss the years later. Okay. And the process starts here with Portuguese. And Portuguese came to India in 1498 AD. Now relate some things that in 1498 AD, who was ruling India? Okay, that is the most important question. So we all know that in 1498, basically Delhi Sultanate period, okay, basically in north, that was covering the major political territories in north. Kutubuddin Aibak becomes the ruler in the year 1206 AD. You all know this. That was the slave dynasty. And then Khilji dynasty, Tughlaq dynasty, Sayyid dynasty, and Lodi dynasty. And who was the last Lodi dynasty ruler? Ibrahim Lodi. We all know this. Clear? And in 1526, Ibrahim Lodi was defeated by Babur. Right? 1526, what happened? Ibrahim Lodi was defeated by Babur. He was defeated by Babur. It means that here Lodi dynasty was ruling in India. Lodi dynasty was ruling in India. Basically, Sayyid and Lodis, they were the last group of rulers in Delhi Sultanate. Okay, it means that this is before the foundation of Mughal rule in India. Clear? Then 1526, what happens? Foundation of Mughal rule, right? And from 1526 till 1707, what we see, there are mighty Mughal emperors in India. Okay, not all are mighty. For example, Babur ruled for a very short span of time, for 4 years only. Then Humayun comes, and we all know that Humayun faced a lot of difficulties. There are two phases of Humayun's rule, right? You know, 1530 to 40. Then again, Sher Shah Suri will come to power. Shur dynasty will come to power. That is from 1540 to 1555. And Sher Shah Suri ruled from 1540 to 1545, and then Sur dynasty rulers ruled. It means that Humayun faced a lot of difficulties. And when Humayun ruled India, basically that was not a powerful ruler. Humayun was not a powerful ruler. Instead, Sher Shah Suri was a powerful ruler. So who led the foundation? Okay, real foundation of Mughal Empire in India. The name of that person was Akbar. Right? So from Akbar, we see the story starts. The mighty Mughal rulers start ruling. But after Akbar, who becomes the ruler? Jahangir becomes the ruler. Okay, and there are many, you can say that, weaknesses in the personality of Jahangir. We all know that this is the time period of Jahangir, 1605 to 1627. And actually, during Jahangir's rule, who was controlling power? Noor Jahan was controlling power. Okay, this we already have discussed in medieval India. So from 1611 to 1627, Noor Jahan was controlling power. It means the emperor was, okay, actually not ruling. He was like a nominal ruler. Noor Jahan was ruling. Noor Jahan had a lot of interference in the Mughal court. And this is the same time when European powers are coming to India. Clear? British came to India, what is the year? Again 1600 AD. They started coming to India. 1608, they set up their temporary settlement in India. So when British set up their temporary settlement in India, who was ruling? Jahangir was ruling. Year is 1608 and Jahangir's rule is 1605 to 1627. So Jahangir was ruling. Okay. So in this situation, Jahangir, what will he will do? He will give a lot of relaxations to these foreign trading companies. Clear? So foreign trading companies will be successful in getting privileges. And after Jahangir, we see that Shah Jahan ruled, Aurangzeb ruled, and the death of Aurangzeb in the year 1707. Okay, after this year, what happens? The process of decline of Mughal power starts. It means here the Mughal power, that was like the central political authority in India, it will start decline. Clear? And this decline will be continued till this year, that is 1858 AD. What happened in 1850 AD? The crown becomes the ruler of India. And this phase is the decline of Mughal power in India. Clear? 1707, decline of Mughal power in India starts. Clear? Now, when there will be a political vacuum, what will happen? Someone else will try to control power. There will be different stakeholders who will fight for power. Okay, this is quite natural. So different European groups were also fighting among themselves to establish their supremacy, and there were different regional powers also who were fighting among themselves to establish their supremacy. So among these foreign trading companies, okay, you can say that British and French, okay, They were in the most privileged position. They were the most powerful. And British and French were the main colonial rivals in India. Finally, who was successful in establishing power in India? So that is British. Clear? And among regional powers, the most important claimants of powers were Marathas. Clear? So on one side in regional powers, the most important claimants of powers were Marathas, and among European companies, the most important claimants of powers were British. So there were conflicts, okay, a lot of conflicts. That is also disintegration of Mughal Empire in India. British fought a battle, that is Battle of Plassey, in the year 1757, and that is what, 18th century. 1757 is 18th century. Here in world history also, when you look at the syllabus of world history, you will find it has been written that events in 18th century in world history also, that is modern world history. Clear? In Indian history also, we are reading what, events in 18th century. The same thing we are doing. So now I mean to say here is that, okay, the first chapter in our syllabus, okay, is basically a combination of three different approaches here. Okay, we have to read basically three chapters, and these three chapters are integrated with each other. We cannot separate them, we cannot bifurcate them. So these three chapters are integrated with each other. And what are these three chapters? Okay, so look here, processes which are simultaneous. Which three processes are simultaneous? कौन से वो तीन processes simultaneous हैं? So first process is what? Advent of Europeans in India. Advent of Europeans in India. Advent of Europeans in India. Right? The first group were the Portuguese, and first person who reached India was Vasco da Gama. In which year? That is 1498 AD. And this is what? Last decade of 15th century. This is what? Last decade of 15th century. The informations are very simple. Clear? In this class of modern history, okay, I will cover complete post independence. Clear? Because here there is no any limitation of number of classes, right? So post independence I will teach almost 12 to 15 lectures, and that will give you a very sound basics for your internal security topics, essay and everything. Okay, in polity also you will get a lot of help from that part. Clear? So in the, since we don't have a number, okay, limited number of the classes, so we are going to discuss everything in detail. We will also do practice of PYQs, but lastly when I will finish the entire syllabus, then I will take 3 or 4 classes and will discuss all the PYQs. Okay na? So take classes only, there is no need to read books here. Okay, no any book is suggested. I will teach everything. So now advent of Europeans in India, the process started in 15th century. Okay, now the second process is simultaneous, and that is what? Decline of Mughal power. Decline of Mughal power. Basically, that is a later process. Decline of Mughal power. Here you can write Portuguese, Dutch, English, and French. And this is in chronological order. This question is a UPSC PYQ that arrange different group of European traders who came to India in chronological order. So that is Portuguese, Dutch, English, and French. So they came to India, this process, okay, 1498, this is Dutch in 1596 essay, okay, they come at different time interval. Now decline of Mughal power, right here, that the process starts, the process of decline starts after death of powerful Mughal ruler, and the name of that powerful Mughal ruler is Aurangzeb. And Aurangzeb died in which year? 1707 AD. And this is 18th century. Very simple. This is what? 18th century. So Aurangzeb died in 1707 AD. That is 18th century. So this is the death of last powerful Mughal ruler Aurangzeb. Right? And after this the decline starts. So this right here, that this phase from 1707 to 1858 is the phase of decline of Mughal power in India. Because what happened in 1858? So you can write here that the crown rule or direct British rule was crown rule or direct British rule was established here. The crown rule or direct British rule was established. Clear? Now here, in advent of Europeans in India, we can note another important thing, and that is what? We can note another important point here, and that is what? For example, we will talk particularly in context of British, because British came and they became the rulers in India. For example, British East India Company or English East India Company first came to India as a trading company. You all know this? It first came to India as a trading company. We are talking particularly in context of English East India Company. And the year is what? 1600. This year we will remember. 1600. And from 1600 till 1757 AD, it means this is a period of almost 150 years. This is a period of almost 150 years. From 1600 to 1757 AD, that is a period of almost 150 years. East India Company was a trading company only. It was a trading company only, right? And what happened? From 1757 onwards, it means that in 1757 a very famous battle was fought, that is Battle of Plassey, and East India Company established its political control over Bengal. Basically, there are a sequence of events: Battle of Plassey, Battle of Buxar, Treaty of Allahabad. But in general, we can understand that from 1757, EIC established its political control over Bengal. And from 1757 till 1858, this is the time period. From 1757 till 1858, what we see here is that East India Company was a trading company as well as it was a ruling company. That is the most important thing, that the role of East India Company changed here. From 1757 till 1858, we see that East India Company was a trading company and it was a ruling company also, right? And in this phase, again, this is a period of how much year? 1757 to 1858, almost 100 year. Almost 100 year. We can take a very simple data here that it is almost 100 years. Now, the presence of East India Company in India was of almost 250 years. 150 plus 100. 150 as a trading company and then 100 years as a trading company and a ruling company. Now here, when East India Company was a ruling company, this phase was the period of indirect British rule in India. That is not direct British rule. So the rule of EIC, this phase is the rule of EIC. So this is EIC rule, and this is what? Period of direct, this is period of indirect British rule in India. This is the period of indirect British rule in India. And 1858, what happens? Crown rule is established here. Crown rule is established here in 1858. So from 1858 to 1947, what we see? From 1858 to 1947, this is the period of direct British rule. This is the period of direct British rule. And in this period, India was a colony of Great Britain. In this period, India was a colony of Great Britain. Here, India was a colony of Great Britain from 1858 to 1947. Again, it is a period of almost how many years? We can just make a simple idea. It is a period of almost nearly 200 years. It's not exact 200, but it's nearly 200 years. Nearly 200 years. This is a period of nearly 200 years. This is nearly 200 years. Now, just think for a few seconds that British exploited India, or the British government exploited India directly for a period of nearly 200 years. And indirectly, they were looting India, they were exploiting India for a period of how many years? Almost 250 years. Who had given monopolistic rights to the company? The British government had given, right? And that company was a trading company for 150 years. So obviously that company will gain some benefits and the crown will get a share of these benefits. This will happen now. Okay, so this is almost how many year? 150 plus 100 plus 200, right? So India was exploited. Why India was exploited? Why different group of trading companies came to India? Why different group of Europeans came to India? Obviously due to the economic prospect of India. Got it? So do we need to understand the economic prospects of India in the 18th century? The trade and commerce in India, right? Why Europeans were attracted towards India? So that is a very important thing that we need to understand in this part. That right this point, that why different group of Europeans were attracted towards India? Why different group of Europeans? Why different group of Europeans were attracted towards India? Why different group of Europeans were attracted towards India? Okay, and write one more point. The rich legacy of India's trade and commerce from the ancient times. That is the reason. The rich legacy of, okay, the rich legacy of trade and commerce of India from the ancient times. This is one reason. The rich legacy of trade and commerce of India from the ancient times. That's why Europeans were attracted. So we need to discuss that what was that rich legacy. एंशियंट टाइम से इंडिया के पास इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी क्या थी? Why Europeans were attracted? And the second point that we need to understand here is that, right, second point is right, various political, economic, various political, economic, various political, economic and social conditions in Europe, various political, economic and social conditions or circumstances in Europe, political, social and economic conditions or circumstances in Europe here that compelled Europeans to come to India, right? So these two ideas are very important. We need to understand that why different group of Europeans came to India. What was the economic prospect that India was presenting at that time? We need to understand that, right? What was the economic prospect that India was presenting at that time? And third important thing, second important thing, circumstances in Europe, that also we need to understand. And then we need to understand what? Why Portuguese came, right? How they ruled India and why they failed, right? Why Dutch power, why Dutch trading company came to India, how they traded, okay, and how they failed, why they failed. In the same way English also, that why they came to India, right? What were their policies, what is their trade policies and why they were successful. Okay, why French came to India, what was their policy in India and why they failed. Obviously these are the basic questions that we need to answer, right? And when we will be able to answer all these questions, the entire concept part will be clear. Okay, and along with the concepts you will get the facts also. But this is not a single process. This all is happening. Now there were different European groups in India. Will there be competition among these groups? Yes, because they all came for a purpose, particular purpose, and that particular purpose was trade and commerce. So there will be commercial rivalry, trade and commerce rivalry among these powers. There will be commercial conflicts which will later turn into the colonial conflicts. So that is very important point. That is called colonial rivalry also. In other words, we call it colonial rivalry also. So obviously when we'll read these topics, we need to understand that what were the conflicts between these different European groups. Was there any conflict between the Portuguese and Dutch? Was there any conflict between the Portuguese and English? Was there any conflict between the English and French, right? For example, Anglo-French wars. You all have heard about this. Carnatic wars. 3 such wars were fought. So what was the reason behind these wars? Why these wars were fought? What was the result or outcome of this war? Clear? So we all need to understand this. So here we need to cover one more area, and that is, you can write this point, write this, that conflict between different European groups or the powers. Conflict between different European groups, conflict between these different European groups or the powers. ठीक है? So we need to understand that also कि इनके बीच में क्या conflicts थे, कैसे वो conflicts हुए, and we have to focus on facts also, because this part is important in prelims also and for mains also, right? In world history we don't need to focus more on the facts, but here we need to learn facts also. Now this is the second part, and what we see that the process of decline of Mughal empire starts after this 1707. So here we need to understand that what are the factors responsible for the decline of Mughal power in India, right? We need to understand. So write this. Here we need to read one topic, that factors that were responsible for the decline of Mughal power in India. Factors that were responsible for the decline of Mughal power in India. We need to understand that. And there is a particular term, that is later Mughals. You must have heard this. So we need to discuss these term also here, that who were the later Mughals. This is an important terminology, that is later Mughals. Clear? Later Mughals. So the question is, who were the later Mughals? So all the Mughal emperors who ruled after Aurangzeb, after 1707, they were the later Mughals. So we need to discuss this topic also. Some important Mughal rulers, no, not important Mughal rulers, they were the weaker Mughal emperors. So we need to know some facts here, okay, and we will also discuss that, right? So these are two processes, process 1 and process 2, which are simultaneous, but there is a third process also, and that is also simultaneous. And what is that? When central political authority will decline or will become weaker, what will happen as a result? When central political authority will decline or will become weaker, what will happen? The regional states will start declaring themselves independent, right? Or they will start declaring themselves semi-independent, and that is called process of disintegration of Mughal empire, and it is accompanied by the rise of regional powers or the regional states. That is the idea. Regional states will rise. So that is the third process right here. Third process here is, right, okay, rise of regional powers, rise of regional powers in 18th century. Rise of regional powers in 18th century. So that is another important fact. Rise of regional powers in 18th century. Clear? That's a very important thing. And here we are talking about which century? 18th century. Decline of Mughal power starts which century? 18th century. Now, among European groups, who became victorious in establishing India as their colony? So the answer is English. And English rule is considered to be established in which year? 1757. Which century is this? 18th century. Decline of Mughal power starts in which century? 18th century, right? And the rise of regional states, okay, this process will also start or is simultaneous after this. So we can say that this is also an important event of 18th century. Important event of 18th century. And here the states are like Bengal, the states are like Mysore, the states are like Sikh, the states are like Marathas, clear? Awadh, Hyderabad, Awadh, Hyderabad, okay, etc. Jat, Ruhelas, there are other states as well. So these are called 18th century regional states, clear? There are different categorization of these states also, that too I will discuss. So these are three processes that are simultaneously, okay, simultaneous. Now we can name this chapter as India in 18th century. Can we name this chapter? And this is the first chapter in Bipan Chandra NCERT book. What is the name of that chapter? India in 18th century. It means in that chapter, all these events have been written in a comprehensive manner. So this chapter, we can call it India in 18th century. India in 18th century. Clear? That is India in 18th century. And the second important thing is what? If I ask you that what is the most remarkable event among all these events? What is the most remarkable or the most important event among all these events? That is the establishment of British rule in India. Is this the most remarkable achievement among all? Yes. Different European powers came. Who became successful in developing or establishing India as their colony? English. Decline of Mughal power. Who replaced Mughal rule? English. Rise of regional states, but these regional states were also defeated by whom? English. So establishment of British power was the most remarkable point here. Clear? So in India in 18th century, what we see? We see what? Read this. Establishment of British Empire in India. We see what? Establishment of British Empire in India. Establishment of British Empire in India. That is the most important point. Establishment of British Empire in India. Now after this establishment, what will happen? Expansion. Clear? After establishment, what will happen? Expansion. So when the expansion, so the chapter is establishment and expansion of British Empire in India. This is the another name of the chapter. Establishment and expansion of British rule in India. Clear? Establishment and expansion of British rule in India. Right? Now, expansion means what? How British rule will be expanded? How this expansion will take place? Obviously, first British will fight with their colonial rivals. So in expansion, we need to read the first chapter, and that is what? What? English conflict with Portuguese, conflict with Dutch, conflict with French. That is what? Expansion of British rule in India. Very simple concept. It means here we need to study about the colonial rivalry and conflicts of Britishers with colonial rivalry or conflicts of Britishers with other rivals, other groups, colonial rivalry and conflicts of Britishers or English with other groups, Portuguese, Dutch and French. So they were their colonial rivals. Clear? So this colonial rivalry and conflict is also an expression of expansion of British rule in India. Very simple. This is also an expression of expansion of British rule in India. And second expression is what? For expansion, British will also fight wars with the local powers. They will fight wars with the Marathas, with Mysore state, with Sikh state. So we need to study those wars also. So read this, okay? English conflict with the local powers. Local powers. That is also important. English conflict with the local powers. English conflict with the local powers. And who are these local powers? Right, point one, for example, Marathas. So the conflict will be named as Anglo-Maratha Wars. Very simple. Clear? The second is Sikh. So the conflict will be known as Anglo-Sikh Wars. The third is Mysore state. So the conflict will be known as Anglo-Mysore Wars. Clear? So there are some important conflicts that we need to discuss. We'll also discuss that in our class. So this entire chapter is what? India in 18th century. And the second aspect is what? Establishment and expansion of British rule in India. Now just imagine that British rule, it was a foreign rule. Okay, British were outsiders. They came to India and they established themselves as rulers. They came to power. They established themselves as the rulers. They came to power. And now they are doing what? They have established themselves as a ruler and now they are expanding their political power. Now they are controlling more and more territories in India. So in order to consolidate the power and control in these territories, they need to develop or build what? System of administration. They will need this because now they are the rulers, and now they are not the native Indians. They are coming from outside. They are doing what? Expansion of political power. So what they need in order to rule, they need to consolidate their power. They need to consolidate their power, consolidate their effort, and for that they need a system of administration. They need a system of administration. So will the British develop a system of administration? Yes. They will develop which kind of system of administration? The administration which will be suitable or favorable for the Britishers, or the administration which will be suitable or favorable for the Indian people? That is suitable, favorable for the Britishers. So they claim, British claim, that in India we develop a formal system of administration. In India, we'll develop a formal system of judiciary. In India, we developed civil services. In India, there was no any formal system of education. We came here, we developed that formal system of education. They say that in India, there was no any proper formal mechanism for the revenue collection, and we also developed that revenue collection mechanism in India. They said that we developed an army that is centralized in nature. Okay, so we are like liberators for the Indian people. We are coming here in India, civilize Indian people, because we are developing what? System of administration. We are giving you education. Now we need to understand that which kind of administrative system was developed by the British in India. For example, they also came with land revenue policies, their economic policies, the policies regarding their famines and droughts. Okay, so we need to read all these, and after studying all these, we need to explore that these policies were beneficial for the Indians or they were more favorable for the Britishers. We need to understand this debate also. So this in during the same part, that is expansion of British rule. For this expansion, what else we need? So we need, or the British will need, a system of administration, and they will develop this system of administration. They will develop what? They will develop a military system of administration, civil civil administrative body. They will develop military. They will also develop judiciary. They also claim that we developed a formal system of education in India. They will say that we came with the land revenue policies in India. Okay, so we also came with these land revenue policies. तो ये land revenue policies भी हम लेके आए हैं. So military system, civil administrative system, judiciary, formal system of education, land revenue policies. Okay, there are a lot of things, okay, which they claim that we did for the benefit of the Indian people. We are like liberators. They want to create the image. So we need to read about all this. We need to discuss their various policies also. We need to discuss their various policies also. For example, policy regarding education, policy regarding famine and droughts, their social and cultural policy, etc. There are a lot of policies, social and cultural policy, etc. So we need to discuss all this. केशव केशव सिंह, आप हिंदी मीडियम के स्टूडेंट हैं ना केशव? अच्छा, क्लास समझ में आ रही है आपको? ठीक है, अभी क्लास करिए, कुछ टाइम बाद हिंदी मीडियम का एक सेपरेट बैच में शुरू करूंगा. ठीक है, तो उसको आप ज्वाइन कर लेना. तो दिस इज व्हाट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, military, civil, judiciary, and this is what you can say that education, land revenue system, policy mechanism, and everything. So this is what policy, administration. So we need to read that also. Okay, so that is another chapter, that is administration under British rule, the policies of British rule, and the effect of these policies on Indian people. So write this chapter, that administration policies, the impact of this system of administration and policies on Indian people, the impact of this system of administration and policies on Indian people. Clear? That is another idea. Now, after this, what we see is that British basically, British government or later became Crown became the ruler of India in 1858. Before this is EIC rule from 1757 to 1858. Before this period from 1600 to 1757, EIC is a trading company only. EIC is a trading company only. Clear? This is EIC rule. Here EIC is a trading company only. Clear? Draw this sketch. These are basic concepts that help us a lot. And this is what? 1947. Okay. India's independence. India's independence from British rule. From British rule. That is one part. India's independence from British rule. This phase is what? This phase is 1757 to 1858. This is called indirect British rule. This phase is called direct British rule. This phase is called direct British rule. Clear? And in this phase, what we see that India was a colony of Great Britain. Clear? Here also India was a colony, but that is indirect British rule. People also generally count this part also. Okay. So this is almost 100 years. This is almost 100 years. So this is total 200 years. So in general, it is called that India was under colonial rule for a period of about 200 years. Clear? So this is what? Phase of colonial exploitation in India. This is what? Phase of colonial exploitation in India. Right? It means phase of colonial exploitation. It means Great Britain is a country and this country had many colonies all over the world. It had many colonies all over the world. Colony 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Many colonies all over the world. And India was one such colony of Great Britain. In the same way, French also had a lot of colonies all over the world. And they also tried to colonize India. Right? Portuguese, Dutch, they also had colonies. Okay. So this is phase of colonial exploitation in India. Now, we need to understand that we are using here a word that is colony. So again, there are two words here. One is imperialism. One is imperialism and second is colonialism. Imperialism and colonialism. In general, both these words are synonymous. Both these words are synonymous. But in general, I am writing here in general, both these words are synonymous. But there are some technical differences also. But if you will try to explore it, you will find that there are some technical differences as well. Right? In general, these words are synonymous, but you will find that there are some technical differences as well. Okay. So this is what? Colonialism. Now, can you define what is imperialism and what is colonialism? General meaning. We are not exploring the very technical meaning of these two terms here because we are frequently using the word colony for India, that India was a colony of Great Britain. So why we are using this word colony? What is difference between imperialism and colonialism? Yes, please. Very good. Very good. And what is colonialism? Anyone else? Akash? Akash? Anyone else? Aditya? अच्छा आदित्य, आप एक्चुअली दो आदित्य हैं। आदित्य, आप मेंस लिख रहे हो ना इस बार? अच्छा, आदित्य अपना कैमरा ऑन करिए। पुट योर कैमरा ऑन। Aditya is a very brilliant student, okay, and he is writing mains this year. And this is the date. क्या date है आज? 26th August. He will be in the list, final list, because he writes excellent answers, mains answer. Okay, uh, okay, so he will be in the list. Mark my words. ठीक है, तो आपकी मेंस की तैयारी कैसी चल रही है आदित्य? You are not audible. Unmute yourself. अच्छा, अभी टेस्ट चल रहा है, तो अभी यहाँ दिल्ली में ही होगी? अच्छा, तो आंसर राइटिंग की कॉन्टिन्यूस प्रैक्टिस करिए, ठीक है ना? दैट विल बी वेरी मच हेल्पफुल फॉर यू, राइट? ओके, चलिए, ऑल द बेस्ट आदित्य। नाउ, okay, now we are coming to the topic here, and that is yes. So I will explain a very simple meaning of this imperialism and colonialism so that you can easily understand the concepts here. Okay, imperialism and colonialism, they are not different. You can say that colonialism is a more advanced stage of imperialism. First important thing, so you can write this point, that colonialism is what? It is a more advanced stage. It is a more advanced stage of imperialism. Colonialism is a more advanced stage of imperialism. Clear? It also means that, for example, imperialism is an age-old concept. Age-old concept, right? And it changed its definitions. It evolved. It changed its definitions at various time interval. And at one point of time, a more advanced stage of imperialism is also known as colonialism. What does it mean? For example, if a nation establishes political control over another nation. For example, if there is nation A and nation A invades another nation B, that is a military conquest. And after this military conquest, it established political control over nation B. That is an imperialistic act. Got it? That is an imperialistic act. What could be the main purpose behind this invasion? Obviously, getting economic gains is the main concern here. So this military control or military conquest or the political conquest will have one objective, and that is what? Economic exploitation, or getting economic gains from this military invasion. ठीक है, ये पहला objective होगा, economic gains. Now the second important point is that, but this is again what? A system of exploitation, but this system of exploitation is clearly visible. The nation B people can easily identify that we are under foreign domination and control. That is imperialism. But in colonialism, this is a smart way of establishing political control, right? Suppose Britain established political control over India in 1858, right? Established political control over India in 1858 and established political control in the name of bringing reforms in India, in the name of establishing a more responsible, okay, and responsive government in India, in the name of bringing reforms in India. Britain established control over India. So that is a more established way, more defined way of establishing control. Okay, so that's why you see that under British rule, British came with different administrative policies. They say that we are bringing reforms, and they are claiming that in India we are on a civilizing mission. We are on a mission to civilize Indian people. We are not exploiters. We are liberators for the Indian people. Indian people are like burden for us. Indian people are like burden for the Britishers. They are like burden for the white men. And they say that we are ready to carry this burden. And that is called white men burdenship theory. And now Indians, we have failed to understand that we are being exploited. We are under colonial subjugation and control. Indians failed to understand. The majority of population failed to understand that we are ruled by British, we are controlled by British, and British are playing divide and rule politics against us. They failed to understand. Then what happened? Socio-religious reformers came, and they did what? They tried to awaken Indian people कि भाई अब तो समझ जाओ that we are under colonial rule and control. But Indians failed to understand. Swami Vivekanand came, Gandhi came, Bhagat Singh came. Bhagat Singh sacrificed his life for what? To provide, to awaken Indian people. So, what is colonialism? Colonialism is a defined set. You can say that more defined form of exploitation. That's why in British rule, we read different topics like administrative reforms introduced by the British. So this is the basic difference, that colonialism is a more advanced phase where the one who is exploited, the system of exploitation is not clearly visible, right? It's not clearly visible, and the colonial rule is validated by making moral claims like the civilizing mission, like the white men burdenship theory. So in this way, India was a colony of Britain, and this entire phase is known as phase of colonialism. Got it? Okay. So this period is a period of almost 200 years. India was under colonial exploitation. So main purpose of British was what? Right? Third important topic. Economic policies of British rule in India. We need to discuss this. Economic policies of British rule in India. And the second important point is the impact of these economic policies. The impact of these economic policies on Indian people. The impact of these economic policies on Indian people. Economic policies of British in India, and the second point is impact of the economic policies on Indian people. And what was the basic objective behind introducing these economic policies? Economic exploitation, to ensure the economic exploitation of India. This was the main objective, to ensure the economic exploitation of India. So we need to discuss this topic. Economic exploitation of India, economic policies of British rule in India, impact of these economic policies on Indian people, right? Here we will discuss about the land revenue policies, right? Here we will discuss about why there was a decline in handicraft, how deindustrialization was promoted, what was the drain of wealth, what was the economic critique about British rule in India. So this topic is also very important for your exam. And after this, right, fourth is, I already told you that colonialism is a more defined way. Okay, it is the advanced stage of imperialism. So here, read this: socio-cultural policies, socio-cultural policies, okay, introduced by British in India. Introduced by British in India. This we will read. Socio-cultural policies introduced by British India. What was their socio-cultural policy? Was it uniform or not uniform? Okay. Socio-cultural policies introduced by British in India. We will also discuss about the socio-cultural policies. And second is, right, socio-religious reforms. This is another important topic. Socio-religious reforms. Socio-religious reforms of 19th century. Socio-religious reforms of 19th century. And lastly, we will also discuss about the impact of these reforms. That is again an important point. Clear? Now, the next important point is that if there is colonial rule in India, so ultimately what will happen? Due to this colonial exploitation, due to this colonial exploitation, different group of Indian peoples will be dissatisfied by this colonial rule, and their dissatisfaction will be expressed in the form of revolts and rebellions. So the next topic is what? Right, revolts and rebellions. That is another important topic. Fifth topic is revolts and rebellions. Revolts and rebellions. Revolts and rebellions. So I already told you that different group of people will do revolts and rebellions against British rule. So this may be peasant revolt, this may be tribal revolt, right? Peasant revolt, tribal revolt. This may be civil rebellion. Okay, this may be revolt. You can say that native rulers reaction against the British rule, right? Native rulers reaction against the British rule. The reaction of displaced zamindars against the British rule. So various reactions will be there. There will be a reaction from the sepoys also. There will be a reaction from the sepoys also, and this will be called sepoy mutiny. There will be a reaction from the sepoys also, and this is called sepoy mutiny. Basically, colonial historians call it sepoy mutiny. To demean this, okay, that is revolt of 1857. Some nationalist historians also call it the first great war of Indian independence. So in classes we will also discuss that is it proper to call it a sepoy mutiny, okay, or was it the first war of Indian independence, okay. So what is the proper or the accurate word for this? So that is revolt of 1857. That is another important topic. And write this: important changes that were introduced after revolt of 1857. Important changes that were introduced after revolt of 1857. That is another important part. Important changes that were introduced after revolt of 1857. We need to discuss that also. That what were the important changes that were introduced after this revolt of 1857. Clear? That is very important topic. Now after this, right, the sixth important part here is, that is, right, development of RPS, that is regional political associations. Development of RPS, that is regional political associations in India. Development of RPS in India. Development of regional political associations in India. Okay. And this process will be continued from 1830s to 1880s and onwards. 1830s to 1880s and onwards, this process will be continued. Development of RPS from 1830s to 1880s onwards. And here these RPS will develop in Bengal, in Madras, in Bombay, and in other parts of India also. These RPS will develop, right? In Bengal, Madras, and Bombay, and all this. So we'll discuss all these RPS. Important prelims questions are asked from this particular area also, right? And finally, we see what? That the culmination of the growth and development of RPS in India can be seen in the formation of a political party, and that is Indian National Congress in the year 1885. Here, the culmination of all these developments is seen in this year, that is 1885, that is formation of Indian National Congress. The process of, okay, culmination can be seen. And this formation of Indian National Congress was the first pan-India political party at that time. It was the first pan-India political party at that time. So this also was symbolic of growth of national consciousness among Indian people. Okay, this was also symbolic of what? Growth of nationalism. This was also symbolic of this, that is growth of nationalism. It was symbolic of this. So formation of INC is an expression of growth of nationalism. So the question here is, what are the different factors that are responsible for the growth of nationalism in India. We need to discuss that. Okay, so you can write one more topic here, that is different factors that were responsible for the growth of nationalism in India. Different factors that were responsible for the growth of nationalism in India. Clear? So this part, the syllabus that I discussed with you, covers important events from 1757, and here we have marked another year, that is 1885. 1757 to 1885. This part is modern Indian history part 1. This is part 1. And what is part 2? Part 2 is very simple. Clear? What is part 2 here? So from 1885 to 1947. From 1885 to 1947. This phase is known as phase of Indian national movement. This phase is known as phase of Indian national movement, and this is part 2. That is called Indian national movement. इसी को Indian national movement कहते हैं. That is part 2, Indian national movement. So in Indian national movement, basically we have to focus on the important developments between 1885 and 1947. Right? We have to focus on the important developments between this period. This is the phase of Indian national movement. Got it? Now this Indian national movement is also divided into 3 phases. So when we will discuss this topic, we will discuss in these 3 particular phases. Clear? First phase is from 1885 to 1905. The second phase is from 1905 to 1919-20, and the third phase is from 1919-20 to 1947. That is the third phase. So there are 3 phases. Clear? This is phase 1, 1885 to 1905. This is called phase of moderate politics or moderate dominion. So this is the phase of moderate politics or moderate dominion. This phase is the phase of extremist politics or extremist dominion. This phase is the phase of extremist politics or extremist dominion. And this phase is called Gandhian phase in Indian national movement. This is called Gandhian phase in Indian national movement. Gandhian phase in Indian national movement. And here we have to discuss a lot of topics here. There are micro topics, okay, that I will discuss on PPT, and after this in classes we will discuss all, okay. And after 1947, right, that is another part, that is phase 3, part 3. And what is part 3? So write this, 1947 to 2024. That is post independence. 1947 to 2024. What are important developments here? We need to understand. Right? So that is the post independence part. Here this time we will take at least 10 classes, minimum 10 classes covering this post independence. Clear? And this is a more accurate time for those who are preparing for 2025. ये history पढ़ने का अच्छा time, and history will give you a basic foundation on which you can build the superstructure. Until unless you don't understand history better, you will not gather the confidence to write good answer in other modules of GS also. Mark my words. ठीक है? कोशिश करके देखना. When you have a good understanding of history, you will be very confident in writing answers. Otherwise, you will keep writing test series. Okay? And why I have already PPTs here, but I am doing board work. What is the reason behind this? Because this is the age of information pandemic, information overload, right? There is a lot of information. What I am teaching here is easily available. You will search Google and you will find the syllabus, the topic has been written, this is the topic of UPSC, PPTs are there. So this information overload or information pandemic, okay, is creating challenge for the students. And UPSC will do what? When there is information overload, information pandemic, they will enter into core concepts. They will try to understand pure analysis, your perspectives. And you must know, I think that in other modules of GS you must have studied that misinformation and disinformation, these are, okay, one of the top challenges that the entire world is facing. Misinformation and disinformation. What is the difference between these two words? In world history we will discuss about this in detail. What is the difference between misinformation and disinformation? Anyone? Satya? Misinformation and disinformation. Giving false information. Okay, this is the general meaning of both these two. But when you give false information, okay, without any particular agenda, that is misinformation. Okay, that is misinformation. And when you give false information or when you withhold information with a particular set of objective or agenda, that is what? Disinformation. Clear? And that is what one of the most important challenge. If you search that what are the top 20 challenges, what are the top 10 challenges for the next 10 years, so this misinformation and disinformation is what one of the most important challenge. And what is the root cause of this? Overload of information. You are getting a lot of information and you believe and trust that information without confirming the validity of the primary source. Clear? And this will be very harmful. It had been harmful in the history. When I will discuss world history, I will discuss with you that how it was very harmful. Okay, it became a reason for the world wars also. Clear? And today also we are doing the same. Okay, in the age of information. So technology is, okay, good also, and technology is bad also in this respect. So we will discuss this part, phase of Indian independence movement. Okay, this entire part we will discuss. Post independence we will discuss. Now again I will give you a breakup of the syllabus, then we will discuss a few things here. For example, okay, so that you should be familiar with a few topics here. Okay, this is the syllabus. History of India and Indian national movement. The syllabus has been written in a very comprehensive manner, but when you will break this syllabus, you will find that 18th century we need to study here. I hope now you will understand what has been written in this syllabus. You all are understanding now, right? That 18th century. Why 18th century? Have you understood? 18th century, why this is important? Factors for the decline of Mughal Empire, regional principalities. Now Nizam's Deccan, it is talking about Hyderabad state. Bengal is again a regional state. Awadh is a regional state. Maratha is a regional state, right? It's also talking about Maratha topic, emergence of Afghan power, battle of Panipat, state politics, culture, economy. So this is what? This is a mix of all those topics that I recently discussed with you. That what are the important issues in 18th century. So this is basically two topics. One is decline of Mughal power, disintegration of Mughal power, and the rise of regional states. These topics are given here. I have already discussed Europeans in India. The process starts in 15th century, right? With Portuguese, it has written that European settlements, Portuguese, Dutch, English, French, struggle for their supremacy. I have already discussed colonial rivalries, Carnatic wars. This is what? Anglo-French war. Bengal, who will fight the war in Bengal? English and Nawabs of Bengal. I have already discussed that the English will come in conflict with the regional powers also to establish their supremacy. So they fought wars with Bengal, they fought wars with Bengal, and Bengal was one of the most important victory, and that's why here Bengal has been focused. Sirajuddaulah I will discuss in class, Battle of Plassey I will discuss in class, significance of Battle of Plassey, Battle of Buxar, Treaty of Allahabad, dual system of government, what was the impact of this dual system of government, we all will discuss. उतना यहाँ भी mention नहीं है syllabus में, ठीक है ना? So what has been written here I will discuss more than that, right? Now British expansion, I told you that for expansion they will do what? They will fight wars with the local powers. So here British fight war with Bengal, Mir Zafar, Mir Qasim, Battle of Buxar. British will fight war with Mysore state, and in Mysore there is Hyder Ali, there is Tipu Sultan. So we will read about Hyder Ali, Tipu Sultan. Okay, we will read about Anglo-Maratha wars. Here Punjab issue has been discussed. So here we will also read about Sikh. We will read about Ranjit Singh and all this. Now, early structure of British Raj. So this is what? Constitutional development topics. I will deal with this topic separately. Okay, from regulating act to 1935 Act, then I will discuss Linlithgow offer, August offer, Kipps mission, right? Then Wavell Plan, Shimla Conference, Cabinet Mission, Mountbatten Plan, Indian Independence Act. This we will discuss separately. This is economic impact of British rule. Okay. Land revenue settlements I have already discussed with you. Permanent settlement we will discuss. Rayatwari settlement we will discuss. Mahalwari settlement we will discuss. Economic impact of revenue or economic exploitation we will discuss. Commercialization of agriculture we will discuss. That was an important aspect. British did what? They promoted commercialization of agriculture. They promoted cash crops over the food crops. Like they promoted indigo cultivation, opium cultivation, cultivation of tea. Okay. And then dislocation of traditional trade and commerce. This is what? Decline in handicraft, because British tried to promote the influx of British goods in the Indian market. So what will happen? Decline in handicraft. So we need to understand that. Then this is what? Deindustrialization. We need to understand that what was that? Deindustrialization, decline of traditional craft. Drain of wealth is a very important concept, right? This theory was given by Dadabhai Nauroji in Poverty and Un-British Rule in India in this book. Okay, so we'll discuss that. Economic transformation of India. It is talking about that before the British came to India, India was self-sufficient. India was very rich. Indian people were sufficient to fulfill their own needs, and the exports were more than imports. Our balance of trade was surplus. But when British came to India, the entire scenario got changed, right? Our imports increased. The balance of trade was now in deficit. We are not self-sufficient, right? We were even facing challenge, okay, for fulfilling our food needs also. So that is a very grim scenario, and it's talking about that. Then we'll also discuss about railroad and communication network, telegraph, postal services. Basically here, British developed this infrastructure in India. But we need to understand the debate that why they developed this infrastructure in India. What was the real purpose behind such developments? Clear? So we need to understand that debate also. Famine and poverty in rural interiors. Now we need to relate different episodes together here. That what was the reason for famine and poverty under the British rule? Okay, was these famines new, or famines were happening in ancient India also? But in modern India, the number of famines increased, the number of droughts increased, their intensity increased, the casualties increased. So what was the main reason behind this? We need to understand, right? European business enterprises and its limitations. We'll also discuss that. Okay, then this is social cultural developments, the most popular topic. Indigenous education, Orientalist Anglicist controversy. Basically, this topic revolves around the system of education in India. That British say that before we came to India, in India there was traditional system of education. We developed a formal system of education. We came with a education policy. Okay, so we need to discuss that. The first time education grant in the year 1813, that was 1 lakh rupees per year. 10 years this fund was not released. Then 1823, a committee was formed, okay, to examine how this money should be spent. In 1833, the Charter Act makes a provision, okay, that in 1835, Macaulay's Minute, and then Anglicist Orientalist controversy. So we'll discuss all this in our classes. The introduction of Western education, that is Anglicization of education in India. English system of education was promoted. All this we will also discuss about vernacular literature and Christian missionaries and their roles in India. This is the most important topic for the mains exam. Socio-religious reform movement in Bengal and other areas. Basically 19th century. Ram Mohan Roy, Brahma Samaj, year is 1828, that is 19th century. So we need to understand who were the important reformers in 19th-20th century, okay, and which province, or we can say that which presidency was like the epicenter of all these reforms. That was Bengal, right? What were the different organizations that were formed, okay, and what were the efforts of Indian socio-religious reformers? Did British made some effort or not? British introduced legislations, clear. And what was the British policy or outlook, their outlook towards these socio-cultural reforms in India? We will discuss all this in very detail, okay. The reforms in Hindu society, the reforms in Muslim society, the reforms in Sikh society, the reforms in Parsi society. We will also discuss about Sir Syed Ahmad Khan and his Aligarh movement. We will discuss about revivalist movement and the reformist movement. So there is a lot to discuss here. Okay, and that will give you a good, you can say that, content for writing essays also. So that is important. Now here, Indian response to British rule. Obviously this response will be in the form of revolts and rebellions. So here different revolts and rebellions has been given. I will discuss the revolts and rebellions in detail in the classes. I have also discussed one more topic, that what were the factors responsible for the growth of nationalism in India, right? Got it? Politics of association. It means regional political associations. Foundations of Indian National Congress in 1885. Safety wall theory and all this. From here what starts? Indian national movement start 1885 onwards. Who are the moderates, who are the extremists? Okay, why partition of Bengal took place, what were the issues involved? After this there was a movement, that is anti-partition of Bengal movement or Swadeshi movement, right? What are the important programs of this Swadeshi movement? Okay, how this Swadeshi movement declined in 1907-08. There was a Surat split in the year 1907. After this what happened? The Swadeshi movement declined, the important leaders were arrested, and the first phase of revolutionary movement started in India. So this also we will discuss in detail. Clear? Then first phase of revolutionary movements will be continued from 1907-08 to 1919-20. Here the revolutionary movement will come to an end because Gandhi will appear on the political scene. Gandhi will be associated with Indian National Congress. Gandhi will return from South Africa to India in 1915, and he will be associated with some of the regional political experiments, that is Champaran, Ahmedabad, Kheda. Then he will launch his first All India Satyagraha, that is Rowlatt Satyagraha, right? And then he will got the opportunity to get associated with the Khilafat movement. So what was that Khilafat movement? What were the issues involved? We'll discuss. And then how that Khilafat movement utilized, the same platform was utilized for, okay, the first mass movement of Gandhi, that is non-cooperation movement. And in this way Gandhi emerges as a national leader. So in classes we will also discuss that what were the early, you can say that, which experiences Gandhi gained in South Africa, how Gandhi evolved as an international leader. Before becoming a national leader, Gandhi was already an international leader. So how Gandhi evolved himself, we will discuss. Various influences on Gandhi, the influences of his father, the influences of his mother, the influences of his wife, the influences of Bhagavad Gita on Gandhi, the influences of Jainism on Gandhi, the influences of Buddhism on Gandhi, the influences of Henry David Thoreau on Gandhi, the influences of Leo Tolstoy, the influences of John Ruskin on Gandhi. And when you will discuss all these influences, you can easily understand Gandhi. And when you will understand Gandhi, you can easily understand the Gandhian movements. Clear? So we miss this part. We directly start from where? Non-cooperation movement, and we start remembering the programs. We should not do that. Clear? So I will discuss more than what has been written here in the syllabus. So one movement is non-cooperation movement. The second movement is civil disobedience movement. Civil disobedience movement, okay, there was a temporary suspension, and during that phase round table conferences took place in England. आज की क्लास थोड़ी सी बोरिंग होगी फॉर दोज स्टूडेंट्स हु आर न्यू, बिकॉज वी आर डिस्कसिंग सिलेबस. ठीक है, तो कल से थोड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग हो जाएगी, तो थोड़ा बर्दाश्त कर लीजिए आज आप लोग, राइट? सो सिविल डिसोबीडियंस मूवमेंट हैज अ टेम्पररी सस्पेंशन, and during that suspension 1932 round table conferences were in progress. So we'll also discuss about round table conference. We will discuss about communal award. We will discuss about Pune Pact. What were the important discussions in round table conferences? Okay, we will discuss all this. There were regional parties also. Then it's also talking about Nehru Report 1928, round table conferences, peasant movement, working class movement. Basically in this phase there will be the influence of socialism. We will also discuss that. Okay, Indian politics, मतलब इसमें बड़ा ही वैसे लिखा हुआ है comprehensive way में. So there are a lot of developments that I will discuss with you. उतना यहाँ syllabus में नहीं mention है. This part I will discuss right after finishing this module. It means that after finishing 1947 and before starting post independence, I will discuss constitutional development. ठीक है, तो बीच में जो reference आएगा, I will discuss only what is important in context with that reference. Otherwise in details we will discuss that. and this will give you a very good understanding for your Indian polity, right? So that's why I will discuss this part separately. And there are revolutionary movement here, that too I will discuss. For example, one stream is what? Gandhian movements are the efforts made by Indian National Congress. In national movement, the another stream is what? Revolutionaries, right? The role of socialist party, the role of communist, the role of tribal people. So we will discuss everything, right, in our classes. This is what? Okay. Politics of separatism, obviously we'll discuss. Divide and rule politics of British. When Muslim League was formed in the year 1906, why it was formed, what were the reason behind this. 1909, the issue of separate electorate system we will discuss. Then we'll discuss how Jinnah was associated with this Muslim League, what were the important demands of Muslim League, what was Jinnah's 14-point formula in 1929, right? Then we'll discuss that how the communal demands started becoming popular from the platform of Muslim League. What was the performance of Muslim League in 1937 elections? We will also discuss about Pakistan resolution in 1940, right? So we will discuss everything in detail, okay? We will also discuss about Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. We'll also discuss that is it proper to say Sir Syed Ahmad Khan was a communal leader? Is it proper or it's not proper? We will discuss everything, and we will also discuss Gandhi. We will try to remove all the rumors, okay, the doubts which are in our mind. Many students do messages that sir आप सच सच बताइए गांधी ने देश का बंटवारा करवाया था ना. मैंने कहा यार तुमको सुन के अच्छा लगेगा क्या, मैं क्या बताऊं. So after the classes you will get all your answers, right? Now this is one of the most important aspects, that is consolidation as a nation. Nehru's foreign policy, India and her neighbors, developments between 1947 and 1964, the linguistic reorganization of states I will discuss in detail. Not only this, I will start the discussion from 1928 Nehru report. I will also discuss the native states and their relations with the British government. I will also discuss the stand of these native states or the princely states in the Indian national movement. What was their outlook? Okay, were they supporting the program of Indian National Congress? These native states participated in RTC, so in round table conferences, what was their outlook? अभी पूरी बात समझ में नहीं आएगी, तो घबराना नहीं है. We will discuss everything. Okay, then this part, that is caste and ethnicity after 1947, backward classes, tribes, Dalit movements. तो थोड़े से इस पे भी हम बात करेंगे, दलित मूवमेंट्स पे. एंड दिस पार्ट आई विल डिस्कस विथ यू इंक्लूडिंग ऑल द 5-year plans etc. Okay, so that will also give you a base for your economy module. Okay, so these are the important developments here that we are going to discuss in our classes. Okay, I will discuss more than what has been written in the syllabus. Now you have a basic idea about the modern Indian history syllabus. Okay, now we will start our classes. And before I start my class, I first will make some things clear that I have started the classes. These classes are completely free. So I will now teach GS history completely free, always, hamesha. So if you find that there are some good students means good students, sincere students, ठीक है ना, क्योंकि मैं अपनी क्लास में राजा नहीं बनाता हूँ, पता ही आपको, ठीक है. तो जो गुड स्टूडेंट्स हैं, जो राजा नहीं बनना चाहते हैं, उनको आप बता देना. They can send me the message and they can join the classes. 300 students can participate in this Zoom meeting. So at least इतने बच्चों का भला हो. Okay, I will charge only for the optional classes. ठीक है, I will teach GS classes free of cost. And after this post independence, I will discuss entire international relations. ठीक है, all these courses will be free. I will discuss essay also, right? So you will get the informations from time to time, and in 1 month I will develop the website and everything, and you will get the updates for that. So entire GS courses will be free. Okay, तो ऐसा नहीं है, there are many good teachers who are teaching modules better. Okay, तो थोड़ी बहुत अगर मैं हेल्प कर सकता हूँ तो आप मेरी क्लासेस देख लेना जब आपको टाइम मिले. ठीक है, तो मुझे पता है कि थोड़ा सा मैं हेल्प कर सकता हूँ, बिकॉज आई एम नॉट सिक ऑफ दीज इन्फॉर्मेशन से मैं दूर रहता. इन आवर क्लास वी विल डिस्कस ओपिनियन, थॉट्स एंड द कॉन्सेप्ट्स, तो वहाँ पे आपको हेल्प मिलेगा. अदरवाइज देर आर लॉट ऑफ इन्फॉर्मेशंस. PYQ series we will also launch. Okay, so you can inform those students who are okay really some students face challenges. Okay, तो उनको आप जरूर बता देना, तो they can join the classes, right? Now we will start our discussion. But before starting the topic, I will discuss some important concepts with you. And what are these concepts? Okay, we are going to discuss that. For example, first chapter is India in 18th century. Like I discussed with you, write this: India in 18th century. India in 18th century. That is our first chapter, India in 18th century. And in that chapter, there are three sub chapters, sub parts that I have already discussed with you. So first was, okay, Europeans in India. Europeans in India. So we are going to start our discussion with this particular area, that is Europeans in India. Okay, Europeans in India. Now I will discuss a very basic concept with you, that the process of association of different European groups in India started from 15th century onward. Clear? 15th century onwards, this process of association of different group of Europeans started here. PDF, 15th century onwards, right? This process started 15th century onward. Okay, now these are various foreign groups who came to India. We all know this, who came to India. And for what purpose they came to India? You all know this. For the purpose of trade, they came to India. So their purpose was trade and commerce. This is the basic purpose, trade and commerce. For the basic purpose of trade and commerce, they came to India. Clear? So it gives us a hint that of what? India's economic prosperity at that time. Because if India will not be prosperous, why they will come to India? It means that in 18th century, or in this phases, 15th century to 18th century, there might be what? Read this: India's prosperity. India's prosperity or economic prosperity. India's prosperity or economic prosperity. India's prosperity or economic prosperity. ठीक है? India's prosperity or economic prosperity, trade and commerce, right? I will give you a very simple example, and that example is, you all know this, this is a very famous example. British established their control over India by controlling which particular area of India? By controlling which particular area? That is Bengal. किसको कंट्रोल किया? बंगाल को. Okay, and historians say that, okay, the key to British success in India was Bengal. Okay, so Bengal was one of the rich province of that time. Which time we are talking about? 18th century. 18th century. British established control over Bengal by fighting a war on 23rd June 1757. They established control over Bengal by fighting a war on 23rd June 1757. That is what? Okay, Battle of Plassey. They established control over Bengal. Now, one simple example. Bengal alone at that time was exporting or was contributing to more than, okay, 1/3 exports from Asia. पूरे एशिया से जितना एक्सपोर्ट होता था, उसका 1/3 से ज्यादा कहां से होता था? आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट इंडिया ओनली, आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट एशिया. पूरे एशिया के एक्सपोर्ट का 1/3 से ज्यादा एक्सपोर्ट कहां से हो रहा है? बंगाल से हो रहा है. अब इससे आप कुछ गेस कर पा रहे हो? आर यू मेकिंग सम गेसेस? यस. So right here, that Bengal alone was contributing. Bengal alone was contributing to more than 1/3 of total exports. More than 1/3 of total exports from Asia. Bengal alone was contributing to more than 1/3 of total exports from Asia. पूरे एशिया के एक्सपोर्ट का 1/3 से ज्यादा कहां से हो रहा है? बंगाल से. एंड इफ वी टॉक इन कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ इंडिया, तो आवर टोटल एक्सपोर्ट्स वेयर, ओके, greater than our total import. It means if we talk in context with India, So in India, what we see is that our total exports were greater than our total import. Total export greater than total import. So what will happen? अगर total export ज्यादा है total import से तो क्या होगा बताओ? Trade surplus. Balance of trade will be in surplus. It means BOT surplus. This is what? BOT surplus. Balance of trade surplus. This is BOT surplus. It means India was exporting more than import. Exporting more. Imports were less. Sorry. Imports were less. Exports were more. And the nature of Indian economy was self-sufficient. हम लोग अपनी जरूरत की ज्यादातर चीजें अपने देश में ही बना लेते थे, बाहर से मंगवाने की जरूरत नहीं थी. तो सेल्फ सफिशिएंट नेचर ऑफ इंडियन इकोनॉमी, दैट इज अनदर इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट हियर, दैट सेल्फ सफिशिएंट नेचर ऑफ इंडियन इकोनॉमी. सेल्फ सफिशिएंट नेचर ऑफ इंडियन इकोनॉमी. ठीक है, इंडियन इकोनॉमी का नेचर भी क्या था? सेल्फ सफिशिएंट था. सेल्फ सफिशिएंट नेचर ऑफ इंडियन इकोनॉमी. गॉट इट? So that is one of the most important aspect. And another important point, India was a great leader in the export of textile at that time. It means the Indian textiles were flooded in the markets of European countries. So what is the most popular item of export at that time? So the most popular item of export was Indian textiles. That was the most important item of export. European countries, the markets of European countries, even the market of Britain was also over flooded with the Indian textile goods. That is the most important point, because here we have to establish the linkages between Britain and India. So the British market, right, this the British market were also flooded with Indian goods. The British market were also flooded with Indian goods. It means simply that British could not compete with Indian textile industry. This was a fact, that British were not able to compete with Indian textile industry. Indian textile industry. Britain was not able to compete with Indian textile industry. And in NCERT book, you will find a mention of Robinson Crusoe and all this, that in Britain, the British did what? The British government did what? They put restrictions, okay, on the entry of Indian textiles by using what? Unfair tariff mechanism. ये काम किया Indian textiles को रोकने के लिए. Second point, they also issued administrative orders for the British people, that you don't have to use Indian textiles if you will be found using Indian textiles. Even if you are found using Indian handkerchief, okay, fines will be imposed. So such kind of restrictions were made. Got it? It means that the British government was very much concerned about the growing Indian textile industry. And here textile means I am not talking about the modern machines. In India, the Indian textile industry was a part of, okay, you can say that, basic handloom textile industry, because there is a large size of people population. For example, if you compare Great Britain with India at that time, so India was having a comparatively larger size of population, okay, and we were using what? Small machines, not big factories, for production of cotton textiles, okay, like spinning wheels and all this. Most of the production was homemade only, but still we were leading. That is the most important point. And at that time in Britain there was no industrial revolution, and that's why Britain was very much concerned. Britain में industries थी नहीं, ठीक है. अब जब population कम है और वहाँ big industries नहीं है, so how they will compete? They will not compete ना. So what happens that, read this, industrial revolution in Britain. Industrial revolution in Britain. Industrial revolution in Britain. ये कब है industrial revolution? So that is 1760s. 1760s. Some books also write 1740s, तो ऐसा गलत नहीं है कुछ. 1760s. इंडस्ट्रियल रिवोल्यूशन ब्रिटेन में कब है? 1760s. इसका मतलब इसके पहले तो इंडस्ट्रियल रिवोल्यूशन नहीं है. द सेकेंड इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग, इंडस्ट्रियल रिवोल्यूशन इन ब्रिटेन वॉज इन इट्स इनिशियल स्टेज इट वॉज ओनली अ टेक्सटाइल रिवॉल्यूशन। शुरू में ये टेक्सटाइल रिवॉल्यूशन था, कहते इसको इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन है, बट शुरू में ये क्या था, टेक्सटाइल रिवॉल्यूशन है। यानी यहाँ टेक्सटाइल अब जो बनेगा वो कैसे बनेगा, with the help of machines, big machines, factory system of production. So you can write at this point that in its initial stages, in its initial stages, in its initial stages, in its initial stages, industrial revolution in Britain was mainly a textile revolution. In its initial stages, industrial revolution in Britain was mainly a textile revolution. And their industrial revolution means what? Factory system of production. Factory system of production. Big machines will be used and utilized for the production. Big machines will be used and utilized for production. That is what factory system of production. Big machines will be used and utilized for this system of production. Got it? Big machines, factory system of production. Now, what we notice here is that now after this, the situations will change. Obviously, machine made textiles will be cheaper, right? They can manufacture textiles in large quantities, and they will also use what? Look here again, the time period. Look here. In India, the British rule, indirect British rule or EIC rule was established in which year? 1757. That is Battle of Plassey. 1764. That is Battle of Buxar. 1765. That is Treaty of Allahabad. Right? अगर हम इसके लिए एक कॉमन ईयर लें, so that can be what? 1760s. कुछ कोरिलेशन हुआ? The establishment of British rule in India and industrial revolution in Britain both are okay a simultaneous process. दोनों साथ साथ चलने वाला है, ठीक है? तो ये क्यों हो रहा है? दिस इज टू बीट द इंडियन टेक्सटाइल मार्केट. इसका बेसिक पर्पस क्या है? इंडियन टेक्सटाइल मार्केट को बीट करना. ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स, इंडियाज रिच लेगेसी ऑफ ट्रेड एंड कॉमर्स. नाउ I will ask you a very simple question, that in India, right, cotton textiles were used first by whom? Who were the first to use the textile cotton textiles? सबसे पहले किसने यूज किया था कॉटन टेक्सटाइल्स को? बताओ आप. Indus Valley civilization people, IVC people were the first to use cotton. Very important point. अब देखना है आपको, हिस्ट्री में जाके रिलेट करो. Here we are talking about textiles, and in India, IVC people were the first to use the cotton textiles. They were familiar with the use of cotton. This is a prelims question. Indus Valley civilization period, urban civilization 2350 BC to 1750 BC. अच्छा, इसके बाद क्या है? If you already have studied AMC, ठीक है, so what we see that 600-300 BC period is second urbanization period. Okay, I am making a timeline here. Okay, यहाँ पे हमें कोई जल्दबाजी नहीं है, ठीक है? तो मैं बहुत डिटेल में पढ़ाऊंगा, तो पेशेंस के साथ बैठना, एंड यू डोंट हैव टू रीड एनीथिंग, ठीक है? अब इस क्लासेस में क्वेश्चन बैंक भी छोड़ देना है, लास्ट में प्रैक्टिस करना है. वन टाइम प्रैक्टिस विल बी सफिशिएंट, ठीक है? बिकॉज आई विल डिस्कस ऑल द क्वेश्चंस आल्सो. नाउ व्हाट वी सी हियर, देखो, इंडस वैली सिविलाइजेशन, IVC, then Mahajanpad era. IVC period is the first urbanization phase. Mahajanpad era is the second urbanization phase. Those who know ancient Indian history, this phase is 2350 BC to 1750 BC. This phase is 600 BC to 300 BC period. I am only giving a short, okay, introduction here. Then later Mauryan phase or later Mauryan period, that is from 200 BC to 300 AD period. This is again a phase of economic prosperity. Later Mauryan period. This is a phase of economic prosperity. Why phase of economic prosperity? Due to the cultural interaction with different groups. During the later Mauryan period, what happened? Indo-Greeks, Shakas, Pehlavas, Kushanas, these various group of foreigners came to India, right? They came as invaders, but later they became Indians. They adopted Indian cultural practices and traditions. And among these, who was the most Indianized group? Kushan were the most Indianized group. And look here, this is Kushan. Kushan rule here. That Shakas are there, Tunga are there, Satvahanas are. Satvahana power is also very important. There are three powers, Tunga, Kanva, and Satvahana, right? And Satvahanas were the local rulers. Tunga were the local rulers, Kanva were the local rulers, and Satvahanas were the local rulers. And they were ruling which part? They were ruling Deccan region. And Deccan acted like a cultural and economic bridge between north and साउथ. दक्कन ने किस चीज का काम किया था? नॉर्थ और साउथ के बीच में कल्चरल ब्रिज और इकोनॉमिक ब्रिज का काम किया था. इट मीन्स दैट देयर इज अ कंट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ सातवाहना रूलर्स in promoting the trade relations and economic interactions between north and south. And what about Kushanas? Kushanas के बारे में क्या है? Kushanas were the most Indianized group. Kanishk was the most popular ruler, and Kushanas promoted economic prosperity. And at that time, Kushanas were the Indian rulers who established their control or who dominated Silk Route. Silk Route नाम क्या है? Silk. Kushanas were dominating Silk Route. Silk से क्या बनेगा? Textile. It means again during the later Mauryan phase, what we see that textiles are one of the most important item of export, and this export was very popular during the Kushana route, silk trade, silk route from China to European countries. It was connecting silk route, right? For example, if you look at this map, you will find that in ancient India, the people were doing trade and commerce using trade route, that is land route also and sea route also. And the people are not doing only internal trade, they are also doing external trade. For example, first reference of external trade during the time of IVC people, Dilmun, Magan and Makan, right? Meluha. And Meluha is synonymous with the IVC. In Indus Valley civilization, you must have studied. So in ancient India, in Indus Valley civilization also, people were doing external trade, international trade, the trade using sea. Okay? Lothal was a dockyard. Oh, dockyard has been found in Lothal. It is symbolic of that. Now look here. In ancient India, the people are doing trade and commerce, right? This is what? Silk route, land route. This is China, Chinese region. The people are connected to these Central Asian countries, Persia. They are also connected to the Byzantine Empire, Europe. It means from China to the Central Asian countries, to the Middle East, the Europe. Even the people are doing trade and commerce to Africa. Africa के साथ भी trade and commerce है. And here they are using sea route also. This violet line is what? Sea route. Look here. They are using this personal Gulf region. इस region को use करते हुए, फिर they are using this Red Sea region, and they are doing trade and commerce. But when we talk about Africa, it means that this was the point which was discovered. It means that in ancient India, people did not discover the sea route through Cape of Good Hope. उसको डिस्कवर नहीं कर पाए थे. यहाँ तक का रास्ता पता था हमें, ठीक है, इसके आगे नहीं गया. इसके आगे कौन लेके चला जाएगा बताओ? For example, this is a very famous book, Periplus of the Erythraean Sea. It gives us details about 1st century AD, that is 100 AD. और इस समय कौन रूल कर रहा है बताओ? 1st century AD में who is ruling? Later Mauryan period है ना. This is later Mauryan period. Very simple. Later Mauryan period, right? 1st century AD. And the people are doing trade and commerce using sea routes also. देखो कहाँ तक का route discovered है? The people are using sea route here. This route the people are using mainly to do trade and commerce with the European countries. They are using this route. Okay, so that this trade route was discovered. ये वाला trade route discovered है. Is it clear? समझ में आया? What Vasco da Gama did? Vasco da Gama ने क्या किया? अभी ये हैंग कर गया स्क्रीन, ठीक है. Vasco da Gama discovered the trade via Cape of Good Hope. उसने उस ट्रेड रूट को ढूंढा, बस उसने ये नया खोज किया था. ऐसा नहीं है कि वी वर नॉट फैमिलियर विद द सी रूट ट्रेड, वी वर डूइंग सी रूट ट्रेड, बट वास्को डा गामा डिस्कवर्ड ओके द सी रूट वाया दिस केप ऑफ गुड होप रीजन. नाउ व्हाट आई मीन टू से इज दैट we were talking about ancient India. Later Mauryan phase, there was economic prosperity. Deccan was a cultural bridge. And what about the south states, southern states? Cholas, 9th century AD to 12th, 13th century AD was the imperial phase of Cholas. And again, the trade via this, using this sea route was popular. In Pandya's, sea route was popular. Chera's sea route was popular. It means there was international trade in ancient India also, right? In Gupta period also. That the Gupta period was also the phase of economic prosperity. But in second half, what happened? The economic prosperity declined. Why declined? Silk was an important factor. चाइनीज ने काम गड़बड़ कर दिया. चाइनीज ने रोमन्स को सिखा दिया हाउ टू रियर सिल्क वॉर्म्स. तो उससे क्या हुआ? Gupta Empire, the trade and commerce was affected. This is one reason. Okay, so the economic prosperity declined. But what about during the Delhi Sultanate rule and Mughal period? Again, I have told you earlier in ancient Indian classes also that when cultural interaction will increase, this will also add to what? Economic prosperity. इससे इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी भी बढ़ेगी. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, विजयनगर स्टेट इन साउथ इंडिया. ओके, Portuguese travelers visited there, various European travelers came there and wrote their accounts about Vijayanagar Empire. It was a rich and prosperous state of South India. Got it? So that is an important point. So we need to understand that what was the nature of trade and commerce in ancient India, what was the nature of trade and commerce in medieval India, and this will attract the various European groups to come to India. मेरी बात समझ गया ना? So basically we will start our class from tomorrow and we will start our discussion from here. The nature of trade and commerce in ancient India, the nature of trade and commerce in medieval India, and then I will discuss that why Europeans were attracted. What was the prospect of this trade and commerce? We will discuss that. And then we will discuss various circumstances in Europe. So after these classes, this is not only history class. ये केवल history class नहीं है. Whatever need to be interlinked, I am interlinking different aspects together. So that will give you a very good understanding of this entire GS syllabus. Trust me. ठीक है? आप मेरी पढ़ाई गई चीज को कहीं ना कहीं यूज करने ही वाले हो मेंस एग्जाम में. दिस इज फॉर श्योर. ठीक है ना? ये होगा आप जब एग्जाम दोगे. बट हियर व्हेन विल डिस्कस इन डिटेल, यू विल यूज इट समवेयर इन एसे, in any paper. When I will teach Gandhi here, I will also include the ethical, okay, perspectives in Gandhi. I will include that. Okay, I will include ethical perspectives in Swami Vivekananda also. I will discuss Bhagat Singh in detail because there is no any dearth of time. Okay, and now I have decided that I will go for GS completely free. आपका क्या support and cooperation चाहिए? Okay, those who are expert in technology, एक दो लोग मेरे को नंबर कर मैसेज कर देना. आई विल टेक हेल्प फ्रॉम यू. ठीक है, आप लोग कुछ मुझसे सीखो, मैं कुछ आपसे सीख लूँ. ठीक है. सेकेंड थिंग इज दैट यू विल इन्फॉर्म दोज स्टूडेंट्स हु आर गुड. ठीक है, गुड इन देयर स्टडीज, हु आर सिंसियर. ओके, दे कैन ज्वाइन माई क्लासेस एंड आई विल डिस्कस GS areas, basically history, IR portion will be there, and some topics of internal security and social issue I will also discuss. Ethics I will also discuss. Okay, but gradually we will discuss it. Okay, there will be some special sessions. Okay, on some special days I will inform you all. I will take some special lecture, like lectures on Gandhi. Okay, lectures on Immanuel Kant and all this. Okay, 1 hour lecture will be there, so you will be informed. So take the benefit of the outlook and the analysis from my classes. Clear? So you will gather confidence for your answer writing, right? And in this way we will go forward. Okay, so this is my only request, that you must inform the sincere student to join my classes. Okay, the number can be 300 here. 300 students I can teach, तो ज़्यादा भला हो जाए. जैसे मैं अगर कुछ बच्चों को पढ़ा रहा हूँ, some more students will come, they can further, okay, take their classes. ठीक है ना? So today's session, this is today's session.